In the previous lectures, we have seen three different values that can be set to the position property, and they are static, that is a default value, fixed, which means the item will be positioned with respect to the viewport, that is, the item will be fixed on the screen even if we move the screen using scroll bars. And we have also seen the relative value, which means the item will be positioned with respect to its original position. In this lecture, we are going to see the fourth value that can be set to the position property, and that is absolute. If you set the value of position property to absolute for an element and use the top, left, bottom or right properties to position it, it will be positioned exactly where we specify, and it will be removed from the normal flow of the document, and it will be positioned in relation to its parent, which is also positioned. So, an element is said to be positioned if the value of its position property is anything other than static. If the value is static, it is not considered to be positioned. So when we set the value of position property to absolute for an element, it will be removed from the normal flow of the document and it will be positioned in relation to its parent, which is positioned. So to illustrate this, this is a web page we have developed while discussing the relative value. So let me make some changes. Let me remove this line. Okay. Let me remove this as well. Also this. And suppose I set left to 160 and position to be relative. Okay. And let me show you the output. Let me refresh. See. Now the position of this gray box is relative. But this is actually not removed from the normal flow, right? Because it still occupies the space as per its normal flow. That is, if we haven't specified the value relative, it will be positioned here and still it is occupying this space. That is, it is not allowing this element to move to this space. So this is relative. Suppose I change the value of this to absolute. Now what will happen? Let's see that. Let me refresh. See, this item is removed from its normal flow. That is, it is not occupying its actual space if it was positioned by default. So that is the main difference between relative and absolute. When we set the value of position to absolute, it will be removed from the normal flow and it will be positioned wherever we specified. That is, here we have specified the value of left to be 160. So it is positioned at left 160 point. Suppose I specify top to be 0 and right to be 0. Where will it be positioned? It will be positioned here. Let me refresh. See, it moved to here and it is removed from the normal flow. That is, as per the normal flow, it should be displayed here. But it is removed from this position and that position is now occupied by the next element. So this element is absolutely positioned. Now suppose we want to position all these four elements at different points using the absolute position. So what we can do here, commonly we can set the value of position to be absolute. Okay. And for box 1, let me specify top 0, left 0. Then for the next one, let me cut it and paste it for this, that is top 0 and right 0. Next, for this, let me remove and specify bottom 0 and left 0. And for the last one, bottom 0 and right 0. So how will these boxes be positioned now? It will be positioned at 4 different corners. So let me save this. Let me refresh. See, these items are now at 4 different corners because for the first one, that is the pink box, we have specified top 0, left 0. So this is the top left point, this is the bottom left point, and this is the top right, and this is the bottom right. So these items are positioned exactly where we specified using the left, top, right or bottom properties, and they are removed from the normal flow of the document. That is the difference between relative and absolute. Relative will occupy the space even though it is removed from its original position, but absolute will be removed from the normal flow of the document and it will be positioned exactly where we specify. Then one more thing is that it will be positioned in relation to a positioned parent. A positioned parent means the position of the parent should be anything other than static. And if it does not have any positioned parent, it will be positioned relative to the body, that is the page. That is how it happened here. So suppose I want to include these 4 within a positioned parent. So what I can do, let me specify a parent here, div id equals parent, and let me put these 4 boxes within that. So after this, I'm going to put all these 4 boxes. Now this is the parent of this 4 boxes, okay? And what we can do, we can actually position this parent as we want, right? So suppose I position the parent. So hash parent, let me set a width of 600 px, height of 600 px, and border of 1 px solid black. Now let me set the left and right values for this. Suppose the left be 100 px and top be 100 px. So where it will be positioned? It will be positioned at left 100, top 100 point. And suppose I set the value of position to be absolute for the parent. Now what will happen? Let's see that. Save. Let me refresh. See, now this is a parent to these 4 elements and they are now positioned in relation to this absolute parent, right? It is now positioned with respect to the absolute parent. Previously, these 4 boxes didn't actually have a specified parent, so these 4 boxes were positioned with respect to the body, that is in effect with respect to the web page, right? This box were in this corner, this one in this corner, and like that. But when we set a parent for these 4 boxes and positioned it using absolute value, this parent box is now at 100 point. This is the point. And the child boxes are now positioned in relation to this parent box. Suppose I don't have this position absolute value. What will happen? Let's see that. Save, refresh. See why they are positioned like this? Actually, this one is now having the default position property. What is the default value? It is static. So even if we specify 100, it will not be in effect, because we cannot set left, top, right and bottom properties with position static, right? That is why this parent box is now appearing here. And though these 4 boxes are the child elements of this parent box, the absolutely positioned box will be positioned in relation to its positioned parent. So I have already mentioned that an element is considered to be positioned if the value of its position property is anything other than static. So when we removed the position property of the parent, now the value of position property is static. So it is not considered to be a positioned element. That is why these 4 boxes are now positioned with respect to the body element, that is the page, as before. So when we think of an absolute element, you need to think 3 things. One is it will be positioned wherever we specify. 1. Second is that it will be removed from the normal flow of the document. Third is that it will be positioned in relation to a positioned parent. Otherwise, it will be positioned in relation to the web page itself. So suppose I specify position absolute again. Let's see the difference. Let me refresh. See, now again they are positioned in relation to this parent. Suppose instead of absolute, I specify relative. What will happen? Still this parent element is considered to be positioned. So let's see the difference. Let me refresh. Still these 4 boxes are positioned in relation to the parent. Okay. Now suppose instead of left 100 and top 100, I specify margin 0px auto. What will happen? The parent will be centered, horizontally centered, and the 4 boxes will be positioned within that. Let's see that. Let me refresh. See, 4 boxes are now within the parent element. Actually, this method will be used many times if you are developing complex web applications. That is, the parent will be positioned using relative and the child elements will be positioned using absolute, so that we can position the child elements with respect to the parent element and the parent element can be positioned with respect to its normal position. Okay, so this is a very commonly used technique. That is, parent elements will be positioned using relative and the child elements will be positioned using absolute, so that we can position the elements exactly where we want. So this is the fourth value we are seeing for the position property, and that is absolute.